I'm Tolde Stefanos, and this is ERISAT's The Power of One program. Today is February 1st, 2025. My guest today is Yonas Woldu, a member of Yiakl's diplomacy team. Recently, Yonas and his colleagues traveled to Washington, D.C. to meet with U.S. policymakers in an effort to gain their support for human rights and justice in Eritrea. Yonas, welcome and thank you for being here. Let's start with your personal journey first. It's good to see young people taking active role in the justice movement. What motivated you to join, and how long have you been doing this?
Okay, thank you. Thank you for having me on the show. First of all, and thank you everybody in the audience for listening. But to answer the question, I would say I became very active in politics in general with advocacy and campaigning since 2008 when it came down to American politics. During when Bush was in office and then Obama was rising up to power during that time, we were campaigning from him. And then so I was always engaged. Even before that, I was somewhat engaged, even as far back as 2005, I remember. But in terms of Eritrean politics and everything that's going on in Africa, I would say since November 2020, when the war broke out, when I was watching those videos of all the war going on, people being thrown off of mountains and things like that. And then my biggest thing is this is wrong because there was a peace agreement signed, so that means there should be peace. But the reality is the war broke out a few years later after the peace agreement, and then we started advocating against it right away. And then that's around that time is when I joined Yiakl.
Perfect. Yeah. So you're the kind of person the movement has been looking for, with knowledge of how American politics is played. So just to move on to the topic of the day, give us a brief summary of who you met with during your trip and some of the key accomplishments that came out of those discussions.
Yeah, we met with in Senator Durbin's office, and primarily the reason why we met in his office is because he had on the House floor mentioned the release of prisoners in Eritrea and and several other dictatorship nations, and that caught our attention, and we wanted to learn more about what they can do. So we met with his staffer in D.C. He works in the Judiciary Committee. And that's the committee that's responsible for rules on civil rights, rules on engagement, on how we deal with foreign national organizations, and so forth. So we met with them and gave him some recommended policies. He's also sits on the appropriation committee that talks about how to spend money. And so we got real clear on that, and we asked, of course, for support, civic societies to have support. All of them, not just one organization, but we asked for multiple organizations, everybody who's pro-democracy. And then we asked, of course, for stronger sanctions as well on people that support dictators should be sanctioned as well.
One of the recommendations Michael Rubin made was, to work with the staffers. You can talk to the congressman, but the staffers are the ones who who do all the work. So how was the visit balanced between talking to Durban and his staffers?
Yeah, so I agree with that. Staffers, from day one, we communicated with staffers as far as back as just like 2021 for that matter. I believe in staffers because they're the one who's doing all the work, all the grunt work. They're doing all the research, and it's their portfolio that they have to focus on. So educating them on that is critical. Having a relationship with the congressperson is also a good thing. It doesn't hurt at all. In fact, I remember I met Congresswoman Dina Titus several times during the war in Ethiopia, and giving her updates firsthand, and that was beneficial. So the reality is, having a relationship with them is valuable, but having a relationship with the staffers is critical, and that's what we've been doing with all these staffers that we work with.
Okay. U.S. policymakers were frustrated with the fragmented manner Eritreans were approaching them in the past. What was different about your approach this time that shows we have started speaking with a more unified voice?
So as a civic society, Vital Yiakl USA and so forth, in July 2024, the first time we went to Congressman Brad Sherman's office, we met with one of the staffers. And after the presentation, the conclusion was, wow, I didn't know that there was that many of you guys against the government. You're the first Eritrean opposition I've ever met. And this presentation was great. And then she compared to some other presentations. And you got to keep in mind, they communicate with everybody, these staffers do. So they give us a little, they can give us a little bit of insight of what the feel is of the administration at the time, or what the feel is of the Congress at the time. They can get us that. And so they were really impressed on how organized we were in the meeting that I had. And then what made it different was I gave recognition to the other organizations
Good. Yeah.
at the same time. That's including civic and political. And by doing that, it creates this awareness. And then a few weeks later, or a few months later, Mr. G, the government exile organization, had a meeting with Congressman Brad Sherman. And before that meeting, on the House floor, he mentioned Mr. G, of course, and also he mentioned all the other political organizations and asked the State Department to fund all the other organizations as well on the floor. The reason is because one angle he's hearing there's a lot of organization, on the other angle he's hearing about the government of exile, and so in reality he just pretty much had to combine both those together on the House floor. So that gives you an example of recognition. And a few months later, we were actually able to meet him face to face because of the relationship that they created on that. So thank you.
Right. Okay. So we'll get to that in a bit. But first, I want to ask you about your meeting with the Treasury and Banking Committee. The Eritrean ambassador in South Sudan exposed the regime's various embezzlement schemes about a month or so ago. And not surprisingly, its embassy in the US is also implicated in fraudulent activities. What concrete next steps can Yiakl and the Treasury take to follow the money and to hold embassy personnel and other complicit individuals accountable?
Yeah, so on the Maxine Waters, Congresswoman Maxine Waters is who we bumped into on the finance side. And we explained to her, and the person that was with me was Daniel Breha from New York. And I want to give them a shout out because they came with me, and also Ada Nagash as well. And Maxine Waters is the congresswoman that we met with. We spoke to directly, face to face, on the spot, and we explained to her about the issue, and then she emphasized the Treasury Department can handle that. So, in the policy recommendation that we have to push forward is more strength for the Treasury Department to follow the money here and internationally. So that's the biggest thing. As a community, as a society, just know where your money's going. If your money's going to go support the dictator, just recognize you're doing wrong and it's going to get caught. And if your money's going to support democracy and helping Eritreans to protect their human rights, then that's a plus. That's doable. But the reality is the dictator is only in power simply because money keeps getting to him, to his organizations, and they're oppressing the people. Everybody who visits Eritrea, they recognize you don't see a middle-class society. You see an oppressed society, and you see people running away from the country. And so that's your evidence.
Coming back to the joint efforts, one of the critical gaps within the diaspora movements has been the lack of unified front when engaging with potential allies, as you mentioned, as we were discussing earlier. It does not have to be total unity under one organization, but at the very minimum, there must be some kind of tight, coordinated division of labor with different groups focusing on specific institutions. For example, Yiakl can focus on Congress, others can focus on the Treasury and the State Department and so on. So are there ongoing discussions across the various diaspora movements to pursue a common goal that everyone can commit to, no matter what their secondary affiliations are?
Yeah, 100%. And in fact, even right now, that's what's happening right now, even with the coalition relationships that Global Yiakl has, the coalition relationships that even Baito Yiakl creates on a local front. I think everything should be tailored to everybody's unique talents. For example, those that know a lot about education should create policies on education.
Mhm.
Those that know a lot about reconciliation should create policies on reconciliation. Those who can do diplomacy should do diplomacy. Instead of saying this country goes here, this country goes there, this country goes there, it's better to focus on the unique talents. As far as the organizations, everyone should be able to respect civic organizations independently. Everyone should be able to respect Eritrean political organizations independently. And then what happens is you're creating by default, you're creating a democracy, a way to get everybody working together. Because the branches of government in specific democracy and ours here in America, for example, you got the executive branch, you got the Congress with the House and the Senate, and then of course you got the judiciary with the laws. So that kind of structure is something to work with, and it's recognized internationally. And then, of course, you got parliamentary and so forth, like they do in Canada. And then even less, the component of social democracy. That's the thing, too. So we have to be able to figure out how we can get all our organizations working together. And the good news is it's in the process. And I highly recommend people to join, if you have an organization, to reach out to Global Yiakl and see how we can put it part of the coalition and make it more stronger. Because at the end of the day, we have to be able to work together and respect each other's independence at the same time.
So you mentioned Gabriel Bahadurai's government in exile. Are there others that you're talking to create this coalition that can form this united front, so to speak?
Yeah. I'm always going to talk to any organization, and I'm always going to encourage them to reach out to Global Yaakl in order to create the coalition to where it needs to be. And then from there, I'm always going to encourage towards inclusivity, justice, democracy. That's literally the recipe of I firmly believe in since day one, and I haven't been able to see any way around it because the inclusivity part literally covers the diversity. The justice part literally covers the human rights. The democracy part literally covers the representation. And so, with that being said, it's just a matter of, you know, educating the people that don't know and then reminding the people that do know on this movement.
Mm-hmm. Yiakl has been around what since 2018, I believe. It started then. So how is it doing now in terms of organizational strength and creating these affiliations that were discussed? How is it doing in terms of building that coalition compared to where it started from?
Yeah, to me, it's doing good. It's evolving in the right direction. It has organizations in every city, every country, and in every region part of the globe. And so, by working in conjunction like that, it's good. I think it's natural to go towards the coalition route. That's a natural thing. That's a natural step. And then the evolution of Blue Revolution, Brigadier Hamidou, is also another plus. And so, at the end of the day, all those organizations, all those civic organizations, all the grassroots, all the Eritrean political parties have to find a way to have a solidarity and working together for the purpose of democracy in Eritrea, by default, getting rid of PFDJ and also anybody that oppresses our society.
So what does the big picture look like at the moment in terms of the short-term and long-term goals and how close we are getting, to get to those goals? Give us a big picture of where things are.
The big picture, I would say, because I can't tell you the future, but I can tell you the reality of the direction that we're going. The
Mm-hmm.
big picture is number one, having an understanding in writing, and number two, publicizing the understanding in signature in writing. And then number three would be implementation of it. And so that's the big picture. That's the shortest way I can give you the answer in terms of the vision. And the end game is liberation,
Mm-hmm.
democracy in Eritrea, accountability. That's the big picture.
Okay. So those documents
I would
exist.
say being,
Mhm.
I would say being worked on more than anything else.
Okay. Okay. So I know you have to go, Jonas, but finally, there are hundreds of thousands of Eritrean military who are themselves victims of the regime, right? If messaged properly, They can be a huge part of the justice movement, as we saw in Bangladesh's case recently, for example. When the prime minister or the president of Bangladesh was out of power, the military, instead of taking power themselves, they basically said, no, our job is to uphold the constitution and sovereignty of the nation. We're committed to civilian government. So there's a huge force there that can be part of the justice movement. And it will be difficult to accomplish the quality of change we want without the full alignment of the goals inside and outside the country. So, with that context, what is your message for Eritreans both inside and outside of the country on how to build this unstoppable momentum in order to realize the goals the justice movements wants as quickly as possible?
Hmm. I would say to them that liberty is in their hands and liberty is in our hands, and together is in both our hands. And so to keep faith and just know that Eritrea became an independent country because of the people inside the country and the people outside the country working together. And Eritrea is going to be a liberated country because of the people inside the country and outside the country. So that it can be done. It's been done before for independence. Now it has to be done for liberation.
So just to follow up a bit on that, is that part of the strategy to really align what the diaspora movements are doing with what needs to be done inside? Because at the end of the day, you're going to need the boots on the ground, so to speak. I mean, the diaspora movement can be very strong, but if it's not aligned with what's the situation inside, the success will
Yeah,
be,
no,
yeah,
no matter what, let me make it very clear. We don't want foreign people coming into the country to liberate Eritrea.
right.
We want Eritreans to liberate Eritrea. So therefore, you have to have people in the ground to be able to liberate it, and you have to have people on the outside to be able to advocate and create policies for that environment to happen.
The kinds of things I hear is, we'll work with Abiy or with Tigray. How do you divert from that, from that scenario to really focus on making peace within the Eritrean community first, make it stronger, and then you can deal with the other allies outside of Eritrea, right?
No, no, I understand what you're saying. Yeah,
Yeah,
you have to think about it from the perspective of a person from Eritrea. If they see you saying you're going to work with Abiy or you're going to work with any outside forces, that is a concern.
mhm,
That's the reality of it because of how they grew up and so forth. So the reality is, I do believe that we have to have more Zoom meetings, more things on TikTok, more things on media that's educational, that increases everybody's knowledge base, and that way we can be on the same side and give people opportunity to elect which direction they want to go, as opposed to going the direction, because geopolitics is very complicated. And at the end of the day, you can't do nothing without the support of the people inside the country. And so you have to be able to get the people who wants to be liberated on your side. If the people who wants to be liberated is not on your side, then that's going to be a conflict in itself. And we don't have time for a civil war.
yeah, yeah. No,
Okay.
we just need to make it very clear, what
Yeah,
the end goal is. It's not to just remove the regime and
correct.
have another, maybe a worse situation in your hands because we didn't think through all the, complicated things in the beginning. I think the bottom line is first, there needs to be peace within Eritrea first, make it stronger,
Mhm.
and then deal with other allies after that. So those issues need to be resolved. I know I said finally, but finally,
No, you're okay. You're okay. Go
yeah.
ahead. Go
How much support are you getting from the diaspora community? Are we aligning people towards this common goal so, the justice movement can be stronger and stronger?
Yeah, I think so because I could tailor it based off the phone calls that I get and the comments that I hear. And so I think it's getting stronger and stronger, and I'm very impressed with the amount of talent that the Eritrean community has worldwide. Forget about just one area, the whole world in the
Yep.
UK, in Australia, in EU, in Canada, and of course the United States, and even in Africa. the amount of talent that we have is amazing. I think if we continue to focus on educating our people and we continue to focus on the unique talents that everyone has, I think we'll be able to collaborate and make something better. But I do believe that we need to have a pre-trade agreement, pre-democracy agreement of how we're going to govern instead of going in there, removing them, and then going through chaos.
Exactly.
It's very important that we have an agreement right now in place right now on how we do things, and then we follow suit on that. And I think that's going to be the best direction.
With that,
Institutionalized, and just a structure where everybody understands and can support.
On that very positive note, Jonas, thank you very much. I really thank you for the work you and your colleagues are doing. Good day. Yeah.
Hey, thank you. Thank you. Have a nice day.